Hello and welcome to the Dash Podcast. I'm your host, Trey Gamage, and joining me today is Mr. Me Too, Jeermal Sylvester. He's been working with JAG programs and as a youth specialist for years upon years. And as he'll tell you, once a JAG member, always a JAG member. And we'll get into more of what that means. And as you know, this episode is brought to you by the Gamage Consulting Group. We are working to amplify student voice and engagement. If you're interested in help with your SEL programs and student building programs, visit treygamage.com/shop for more information. Without further ado, my man, Mr. Me Too, how are you today?
Man, I'm well, man. Thank you for having me.
And I was thinking, before we had you, and I met you back when I was in high school, again, at the JAG office, and we'll talk about that. But from that time that I met you, you've had that nickname, Mr. Me Too. Where does that come from?
And no disrespect to the Me Too movement, that's a touchy subject, and we all know what that means. But for me, I've been working in the youth space for probably about 15 years, and I found myself as I worked in the Department of Corrections, I worked in community, I worked in nonprofit organizations. I would share my story. I would begin to work with youth and adults, and they would tell me their stories. And I always seem to find myself saying, guess what, me too. I can empathize with what you've gone through or what you're going through. I can't let you off the hook, because I think that's where we drop the ball at, when we over empathize with people and then we don't inspire them or we don't move them to action. And so I empathize with people and with their stories. And so I'm like, guess what, me too. But, everybody has a butt. So I try to teach people to move their butt out the way.
Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. and I think that's a good point you make there too. Over empathize. So you care so much, or you feel what somebody's going through so much that you feel bad for them, is what that sounds like for me. And because you feel bad for them, you're not trying to challenge your student, because you came from such a poor, disadvantaged background. Poor baby, you don't have the capacity to grow, to try, to do, to lead and all that. Is that, am I hearing that right? Yeah,
and ultimately what you end up doing is you impose a fixed mindset on the student. When we know that the growth mindset is where it's at, and regardless of what happened previously, if we, instead of saying I can't do it yet. Yeah. It's only 3 letters, but they're so powerful, and it means that I'm going to do whatever I need to do, and I'm going to capitalize on the resources and the people around me so that I could get to where I know I need to be. And I think that that's what ultimately ends up happening when we over empathize. Yeah. We force people into a fixed mindset, and then they stop working. They quit.
And that's absolutely right. And I feel like that's why, again, I met you back in high school, coming to visit my mother, my stepmother, Andrea Gamage, shout out to her, at the JAG office, the Jobs for American Graduates. Can you talk to me about what JAG is and why that work is important? Because it's involved in education. Y'all were teaching in the classroom, but not necessarily considered, a traditional classroom teacher.
JAG has been in existence. It originally started in 1979 in Delaware, and it became nationally recognized in 1980. So since 1980, the program has evolved. I believe the last time I checked, I believe it was in 33 states across the United States. And Indiana has one of the largest, if not the largest, JAG program. And what JAG is, it's a school to work type of a program. It's an exposure program, an elective class where we have a JAG specialist who's in the classroom throughout the school year. And the specialist is teaching 37 core competencies that were put together by employers throughout the United States that said that not just you, but here's what people are missing as they come into our organizations or into our businesses looking for work. And so they touch everything from leadership to how to talk and how to articulate yourself, character building. It's a phenomenal program. A lot of students miss out on it because a lot of students don't know what it is and they haven't investigated. But once students get in it, even those students who say, man, I don't want to be in there, after about 3 weeks of JAG,
I love it.
They hooked on the JAG juice, man. And it's, I've been hooked. I started in 2013. I haven't worked for JAG since 2016, but I'm still affiliated. Once JAG, always JAG. And whenever I can lend a hand or help out or even be an advocate for JAG, I always do, because JAG changes people's lives and it provides kids with opportunities and expose them to things that they wouldn't necessarily get in a traditional class. They take them on college field trips. They have guest speakers that come into the classrooms around different career fields. They do career assessments. All of these things that typically underserved and misunderstood kids don't always have an opportunity to do. And so JAG allows you to do that. It's a 2-year program, so typically we want you to get in the program as a junior. But we have had seniors who found out about the program late, get into the program, and then it's a year of follow-up after you graduate from high school. And the goal is ultimately to have a 90% graduation rate. And when you know some schools who have low graduation rates, when you can take a program with 35 to 45 students, who some are high achieving academically and some are low achieving academically, but they have all of these different barriers, and you have a program that can kind of turn that around and cut that light on for students.
Right.
What more can you ask for in an educational setting?
Right. That's about as real as it gets. That's about as real as it gets. And you mentioned earlier, before we were on the air, you talked about how, you mentioned the school to career or work pipeline, but you also mentioned trying to remove barriers for young people. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely, man. We have, of course, because it's funded, it's state and government funded, and so they have criteria that you need to meet in order for you to be in the class. And so there's a multitude of these, but some of them is low income, free and reduced lunch, having a child, parents being incarcerated. The list goes on and on, man. And so while a child might be high functioning academically, they could be low functioning socially. And so JAG, because of the nature of the program, is student led. The specialist is just there to assist. And so the students pretty much run the class. And they have, it's called a career association, and they have different offices. They have a president, a vice president, they have a secretary. It's just great to watch these kids who, when they first come in, they're scared, they're kind of fearful because of the unknown. But when they get in and they find out that, man, you know what, this is kind of cool. And I can be the president and I can have some say-so about what goes on. And my educational experience, man, it's beautiful to see, man. Like to see a kid at the end of August, and just by December, just to see the shift in their mindset and how they're taking school serious, and how they become a band of brothers and sisters, and how they push each other and they challenge each other, man. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it is a special thing, and I've had a chance to go visit a couple of JAG classrooms and have some conversations with the students that are in there. And I think today what I'm realizing in education, that there's been a much bigger push towards rather than JAG, I guess the career and technology education is kind of the second coming to that. Where now there's facilities, and I haven't seen it as much in Indiana, but in South Carolina, there's technical colleges, and there's career institutes where students can go and learn those welding skills. They can learn some engineering, business, financial stuff. They can learn those skills as a part of their day, which is really similar to JAG. But I think about 75% of students who go to high school or graduate high school don't go to college. So those skills that they're learning in a program like JAG or career and tech education is what makes that difference. And that's how we fill jobs, and that's where most of the jobs that need to be filled are at.
Absolutely. And I think, for a long time, our country has pushed college. And while college is a great thing, don't get me wrong, post-secondary education is a phenomenal thing. And if you're up to the task, because it is a task, and that's financially, that's academically, that's socially, if you're up for the task, then by all means, take full advantage of it and go experience that. but I think we've pushed a lot of our students who, I don't want to say they weren't college material, but college just wasn't for them.
Right.
They didn't learn that way, and they weren't able to grab onto it. I think the career and technical side and allowing them to go that route and get specialty certifications in fields that are promising as far as longevity and career and pay. And I think that we're starting to revamp that, and we're beginning to think differently and speak differently because, like I said, college is important, but it's sad when you know that 1 out of 4 freshmen go back home. And it's not, you know what I mean? It's for various reasons. It's homesick, it's financial, but a lot of it is, man, they got there and they weren't ready academically. They couldn't handle the educational rigor. And so putting somebody in that setting, man, it's bad, man, and it leaves a bad taste in a young person's mouth. And so we want to be mindful of that and make sure that we're sending our kids to the right post-secondary ed avenues that are available.
Do you think enough people, you know, in your conversation, I know you've been out of JAG for a couple of years now, do you feel like enough people know about JAG? Do principals, do schools know about JAG? And if they don't or are interested, I haven't heard of JAG since I've been in South Carolina. So that's something I want to look up and see if we have some programs here. How do you get that word out about JAG or career?
Well, I would definitely say go to the national website, the JAG website, and then you can see the states that the JAG programs are in. And typically, in order to have a JAG program at your school, one of the criteria is that your school has to be, I think it's below a 90% graduation rate. Okay. Because what gives JAG its power is that we strive to have a 90% graduation rate. And so if we can take those students who are lower functioning academically and we can kind of turn that around, we know how that affects the overall graduation rate. And so it gets to show the importance of how, even if it's just 45 students, that if we can get a 90% graduation rate with those 45 students, how much it'll affect the overall school's graduation rate. And so that's one of the criteria. There's some other criteria that go with it, and I'm not familiar with that because I was never a part of that process. I was more of the hands-on and creating experiences and opportunities for the young people. But once again, it's a phenomenal program, and if you have it in your state or in your city and your child attends a school that has the program, I strongly suggest in their sophomore year that you tell them to talk to their guidance counselor about getting enrolled because it's going to change their life. And you're going to see the change in your young person by December. And that's just 3 months. Yeah. And so you have such a passion for young people. Again, when I met you, you just have so much energy and so much drive for young people, and I feel like that's something that I'm still young myself. I'm 26, but I just care so much for students who are in school because, like you said, I can empathize with where you come from. I understand that nobody gets to choose what they're born into. In the situations that you're brought up in, you don't get to choose, but we all got to go to school. And if you're going to be at school, I want to help make that difference for you. Where did your passion for helping youth come from? My go-through. And my go-through has been rather unique. Starting off, I was a very good student. But as you said, we can't control what environments that we're in. And so to be in a single parent home and have mom going to work. And so you come home with an all A report card and nobody's there to champion that A. And so I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter if I get A's. And so I got all F's one time and I came home and it was the same response. No one was there.
Wow.
How many of our young people who are coming home with their A's on their math assignment or that spelling test that, they work so hard on, and there's nobody there to champion them. And so that's where school, that feeling of school is not important begins to kind of creep into their psyche. And then you figure the more that goes on, the deeper that gets into the psyche. And then by the time you get to high school, it's like, man, you know what? I really don't care, nothing about being here. And it's easier to not get up in the morning and not show up. And so for me, it was my go-through. And then being a 3-time collegiate dropout, man, I had a full ride to Ball State University, man. All 4 years paid for. I quit school in 1994. Life happened, made some bad decisions. Re-enrolled in school because, I got into the workforce. I have a family now. I have to provide. And I'm in these jobs that I know that, man, I could be a supervisor or I could be a program director, but because I don't have my degree, I can't get that job. So I re-enrolled in 2005. Life happened some more. I ended up dropping out again, and now I'm paying for it. From 90 to 94, I had a scholarship. Nothing came out of my pocket. Now this is my money. I dropped out again. Life happened some more. Get into my job, but I'm beginning to get really good at my job, and so I was able to move up because of my passion, my know-how, and my ability to understand people. Re-enrolled in 2011. Life happened again. I dropped out again, and so from 2011 until December 2017, man, I was just going through life and doing my job and working for JAG, and I was getting certified and gathering certifications, which is a form of post-secondary education. Because it was something that I didn't know formally. Right. And so that's something that I think we dismiss too, is those certifications and those quick trainings that we get, because for those trainings allowed me to get some of the jobs and created opportunities for me. And so we don't ever want to minimize those short-term educational opportunities, because they're providing some great career opportunities for people all over the United States. And so, man, I went back to school in December, man, got re-enrolled, went back to Ball State. 2 semesters. I had a scholarship from the NCAA, man, ended up getting a 4.0 both semesters. Wow. Got my degree after 24 years, man. And so that's why education is important to me, because I had to go through some things employment-wise that I would apply for positions or let my organization know that I wanted to apply for a position, and they would tell me that, well, we would love to have you. We know that you have the passion. We know that you have the knowledge, but the job requires a degree, and they would bring someone in who was fresh out of college and would give them that job, and I would have to train them. Wow. And that would hurt me so much. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care what I got to do. I'm going back to school and I'm getting my degree, man. And so that's where it comes from. Yeah.
Well, that's a whole lot of resilience. Now I have to applaud you for that. In particular, that perspective of bringing home all A's and not being a champion for that. And I feel like that angle, that perspective in itself is one that you do not hear very much. Because even when it is having a student that, maybe in 5th grade, 6th grade, middle school, who seems to not care anymore, you don't think about what that child used to be. You don't think about, oh, this kid's getting all A's right now. What's he got going on at home? That's real, and I've heard about it or had conversations about it with behavior. It's the same thing in the classroom. If your teacher isn't managing the classroom right, those good kids who are doing the right things, if you're not holding the students accountable, the rest of the students accountable in class, the students that are doing well are going to stop doing what they're supposed to do. And
absolutely.
That's wild to even think about it. And that perspective is amazing. So your level of resilience to go through that experience, dropping out of college and getting that scholarship 3 or 4 times, that's the real deal. Matter of fact, I remember when I went to college myself on a scholarship at Miami, Ohio, one of the first things our strength and conditioning coach told us is he said, look around the room. Everybody here is not going to graduate with it. Some folks are going to drop out. Some folks are going to transfer. Some people just are not going to make it. And I think we started with the class of maybe 24 and finished with 17 or 18 folks. We had 6 that left. So that's a real story for a big percentage of people. And again, when I met you, I remember, because we had a conversation just man to man, and you mentioned earlier, we have an age gap, sure, but I feel like we had the same mindset and drive to go make something happen. And you said, yes, sir. So you said, get your butt out of the way or something. Everybody has their butt to get yours out of the way.
Yeah.
Where did some of that motivation come from? Your parents weren't your champion for you. I know that you said that the workplace and your boss telling you couldn't get the job, or having to train the people that were going to be in that supervisor position. Was there anybody in your life that you were able to lean on, or mentors, role models that you've been able to lean on to keep you steady and consistent?
Well, while my mother wasn't there to champion the grades, it doesn't mean that she wasn't serious about education. Mm-hmm. She had to go out and go make some bread so that we could have a place to stay. Yeah. Then when I opened up that refrigerator, the only thing that was in there, it wasn't just a box of baking soda, it was some food in there. And so it's no knock against her. I get it. I didn't understand it at the time, and nor did she have the time to explain to me why she wasn't there. And so she's she's serious about education. She had me reading and writing. I was reading the Sunday newspaper at an early age and doing the crossword puzzles. And so my mom is serious about education. And so I don't want that to be misinterpreted. But as a child, you can't understand that, or you don't know how to receive that. And so you get that signal as nobody cares. And so you take that back to school, and you know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, and then you find 2 or 3 other guys who are going through the same thing. And now you got a crew. And so now we can have pity parties every day, and man, we can sit in the back of the class and chop it up and laugh. And then you got those educators who have kind of lost that fire for teaching, and who will say, you know what, I'm only going to teach the kids who want it, and y'all can stay back there and I'll give you a worksheet, or, you know what I mean? And so our kids end up suffering. And that's not why most of us get into teaching. We get into teaching because we want to help all of them. Not saying that we're going to be able to get everybody, but our intent is to help everybody and exhaust every resource and everything that we have in our being to help each student. And so that's where a lot of that comes from. And so my mom was a motivator. My dad, even in his absence, was a motivator. Yeah. And early on, it was out of anger. And so I used that fuel to, you know what, I'm going to show him, or I'm going to show, people who say that African-American males who grow up without their fathers are susceptible to all of these bad things, incarceration, dropping out. I'm like, man, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And then as I got older and me and my father began to build our relationship as he was released from incarceration, my dad is phenomenal. He was in the who's who at Kennedy King, 4.0 GPA. And so my dad is a student. And so I come from, academia. My parents are very bright. And so, but I didn't know that because I didn't have an opportunity to engage and talk with them about that, because he was gone. He was at big boy school and she was at work. And so a lot of our kids don't really know how smart their parents are, or why their parents didn't, go past the 10th grade or didn't go past high school, because we make decisions and things happen, and then we have to take care of our families. And so, and that's a choice, and that's a grown man or grown woman choice. And so sometimes it's not that school is not important, but me going to college right now is not going to take care of my 3 kids.
It's too real.
Yeah.
It's too real. I think it's really easy to lose touch with what's actually happening. And again, I had a conversation with a brother named Chris Reese on the podcast as well. And he talked about how, when you're teaching a culture of students that you're not familiar with, you got to immerse yourself into that culture to make sure that you can connect with your students and really empathize with them. If you were born and raised in that same culture like you were, with some of the students who are facing some of those barriers, and I don't even want to say students of color because it's a lot of students that go through it. But at the same time, there's definitely an underrepresentation of teachers of color in the classroom. So to have that opportunity to have somebody that looks like them come into class and be able to connect with their situation makes a world of difference. What kind of work are you looking to do right now? Like, what kind of passion and purpose or mission do you have right now that you're still looking to accomplish?
For right now, I currently work with kids, which is in the educational setting. I work with young people, 16 to 24-year-olds, who, for various reasons, have dropped out of school. And we try to, our program and our funding is based around getting them re-engaged. And so we've created some re-engagement centers here in Indianapolis to give them a safe space, because a lot of it is, we talk about trauma-informed schools, trauma-informed teachers, trauma-informed communities, because a lot of our students are suffering from trauma that hasn't been diagnosed. Yeah. And so you have a traumatic event the night before and you come to school, you bring that traumatic experience to school with you. And if, as an educator, I don't know how to deal with that, or I don't know how to respond to that, that could be toxic and that could be very detrimental to that young person. And so I think that, creating safe spaces, and I think that a lot of our students' parents who don't engage in the school systems is because they had traumatic experience in their educational experience. And so when they come up to the school, they're not coming up to the school to address the situation. They're coming up to the school because now I'm grown, and I couldn't tell you this when I was in third grade, but I'm coming up here to give me some get back. And so nothing ever happens. And so I think that, we have to create safe spaces, and we have to think about all of those things. And when you have parents who, it seems like they don't care. I don't know no parent that has a child that doesn't care about their child's well-being. Right. Just because I don't show up doesn't mean that I don't care. You need to find out my story. You need to find out, well, I'm working 2 jobs. And so it's not that I don't care. I got to be at work. I got stuff that I got to take care of. I'm trying to keep my kids engaged in programs, after school programs, sports programs. And so it costs money. And so I have to work 2 jobs. And so that doesn't mean that I don't care. I'm prioritizing what's important to me and my family. And so you can't put your lived experience or what you know or what you think is right and make your priorities become my priorities, because we come from 2 different worlds. And I think that's what happens a lot. And I think that we miss an opportunity to kind of build relationship with those parents. Sometimes maybe it's best to go to the home. And I know that that's not always comfortable, but if you really care about that student and you really care about the well-being of the whole, then you need to go where that parent is comfortable enough and build relationship until you can get them where they feel okay with you to say, you know what, I'll come to the class or I'll come to the school now.
Absolutely. 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 You got to meet folks where they're at.
Yeah.
And even when you talk about communications, a lot of times disagreements are not, nobody's right or wrong. Y'all are just on different pages. You know what I'm saying? If you can meet me where I'm at, I'd be happy to oblige with what you're trying to tell me and how I need to work to be better, man. I appreciate the work you do so much. And this is, we have all these curriculums and pedagogy, and I know, you're still using those curriculums and pedagogy, but sometimes it just comes down to authenticity, experience, and being a part of that culture that you're talking about. So that makes a big difference. And we're wrapping up here, man, but Jeermal, where can we find you, and what are some final words that you want to leave with anybody listening right now?
As far as social media, I'm on LinkedIn, Jeermal Sylvester, JeermalSylvester, and I'm also on Instagram at Mr. _me_2TOO_Indy. Reach out, man, tap in. I try to post some powerful and impacting every day as I'm continuing to go through my journey. And man, my words as we close out would be start where you stand. A lot of times we try to create like with New Year's resolutions. On January 1st, I'm going to do such and such and such and such. And then when January 1st gets here, life also is happening. And life don't care nothing about what you said about January 1st. Right. And so you never get a chance to get started. And so I strongly suggest people that even if you set a date, start a week or 2 ahead of time and get a running start. I've always learned that if you get a running start, you'll always go further.
Hey, I like that. I like that. Plenty of words of inspiration. He's not playing any games when he says he posts something every day. I'm a big fan, a big advocate. I'm happy to have you as a mentor in my life, and every time we chop it up, it's a great opportunity. I learn something new, and I'm inspired to keep on moving forward. So thank you for taking the time out to join us today. Thank you for listening to the Dash Podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Gamers Consulting Group, and if you like it, share it with your friends, share it with your teachers, your principals, anybody that needs to hear this. Getting students re-engaged, preparing students for the workforce, and understanding the traumatic experience that students have been through to be able to have a successful life at the end. So you can find us on Spotify, find us on iTunes podcast, and visit TreyGamers.com for more information. We'll see you next time. This is The Dash.